Hi, welcome back. So in this video, we're going to talk about how we solve application problems that involve trig functions. So I know that application and word problems can be difficult to a lot of students, especially when you're doing them for the first time. So I want to just give some suggestions for how I typically solve word problems and some steps that I follow in order to feel more confident about what I'm doing. So here are some suggestions. I recommend first just reading the problem through without trying to do anything. So don't try to figure out what the answer is or think too hard about what you're going to do. Just read it through and get a sense for the information that you've been given. Then, once you've done this, I would recommend drawing a triangle and labeling the sides and angles that you were given values for. Then you also want to assign and label variables for the information that you're trying to find, or what you're trying to figure out. So you were probably given some information, but there's also information you're trying to find. So you want to label that on the triangle and give it a name, give it a variable name, so that you have something to refer to it by. Then once you've done this, you hopefully have kind of realized what it is you're trying to find out and you have a variable for it. And so you're going to set up a trig function that involves this unknown variable. So you're going to use one of the ratios of sides that includes this unknown variable so that you can solve for it eventually. Then just remember that application problems usually have some sort of units, and so you'll want to include units in your final answer. Lastly, when we're doing word problems with angles, we often have this new way of talking about angles that I just want to briefly mention. So if you see a problem mention the angle of elevation, this is just the angle from the horizontal that opens upward. So if you have a triangle and you're thinking about the ground or the base in the word problem application scenario, the angle of elevation is that angle that touches the ground and then points upward. So it's on the horizontal and then it points upward. You'll have some other angle up on the top, but the angle of elevation, if it gives you that value, that refers to this base one. Okay, so let's try this on an example. The words here, there's a lot of them, so I'm just going to write it all out here and I'll go through that quickly and then I'll read it back to you. So let's say a zip line has a length of 450 feet. If you're not sure, a zip line's like a big wire that's usually between trees or structures of some kind, and a person holds on in some way to the wire and goes from one end to the other. That's not a really great explanation of it, but I'm just using it as an example. You could look up what a zip line is quick if you're curious. So we're saying that it has a length of 450 feet. A person standing at the end of the zip line on the ground measures the angle of elevation to the starting platform of the zip line to be 9 degrees. Then, what is the height of the starting platform? Okay, so we're going to read through this once. We already did that. And now we want to try to identify the information we were given and draw these on a triangle. So I was given the length of the zip line as 450 feet. And I was given the angle of elevation, which is 9 degrees. So for our picture, I'm going to think of the zip line as starting from the ground and going up to some platform. So the zip line is our hypotenuse. So I think of the taller end of the triangle being where that platform is, and then the person zip lining down to the bottom. Then the angle of elevation, so that angle that goes from the ground up toward the top of the zip line, is 9 degrees. Then 450 feet is going to be that hypotenuse because that's the length of the zip line. Now, we've put in the information we know, but what are we trying to find out? Well, the problem says, what is the height of the starting platform? So on my triangle, the height is this vertical side. So it's the distance from the ground up to the top of the starting platform. And so I'm trying to find the height, which I'll give a variable of h. You can give it whatever variable you'd like, but I'm going to use h to remind me that it's the height. Okay, so we have our triangle, we have the information labeled, the information we were given, and the information we're trying to find. And now we're going to set up a trig function that incorporates some of this information. Specifically, we need to know the height, h, and so I want a trig function that's going to involve this. Starting at my angle 9 degrees, I'm noticing that opposite of that angle is the height. So I'm going to want a trig function that involves the opposite side. Moreover, when I'm doing this, I like to keep in mind that on a calculator, I usually only have buttons for sine, cosine, and tangent. So I'm thinking of either sine, cosine, or tangent. Which one do I want to use? Well, I'm going to use the one that relates to both of the sides I have. So the opposite side is h, and the hypotenuse is 450. So I'm going to use sine, which is opposite over hypotenuse. If I was to use tangent, I would be doing opposite over adjacent, but I don't know what the adjacent side is. Similarly, if I was going to do cosine, I would do adjacent over hypotenuse, but I don't really care about the adjacent side. I'm trying to figure out the opposite side, the height. So I'll use sine here, and I say that the sine of 9 degrees is the opposite over the hypotenuse, or h over 450. And I like to just put units in as I go. I don't really know how formal this is, but I find it just helps me remember to put the units at the end. So I'm going to write 450 feet. Now, remember, we're just trying to solve for h. I want to know what the h value is. So we're just going to solve for it in this equation by multiplying the 450 over. So I have 450 times sine of 9 degrees is equal to h. And really, this is like our exact answer, but it doesn't really mean a whole lot as it is, so I'm going to use a calculator to type in sine of 9 degrees and then multiply it by 450 and get a final answer. So when I do this and I round to 1 decimal place, I'm getting that h is approximately 70.4. And remember, our units are feet, so this is saying that the height is 70.4 feet. And there we go. We can write a concluding sentence that answers the question, and it says the starting platform is about 70.4 feet high. And we did it. So hopefully having these suggestions for how to solve application problems can help you stay calm as you're working through word problems in the future. Thanks so much for watching, and I will talk to you in the next one.